the church underground, caring for the mentally ill. This topic affects all of us. Someone you know struggles with this illness. Our presenter today has a master's degree in counseling and has served as a church leader for over 13 years. She is devoted to calling for all of God's children and their journey to becoming fully devoted followers of Christ. Join me in welcoming Katie Walter.
The church that you see is the Anglican Cathedral Church in Europe. It's a beautiful cathedral. People from all over come to see this church. And they take note of how gorgeous it is. But the story of this church is not so beautiful in nature. The church was actually filled at one time with pastors, priests, leaders who came together on a Sunday morning, while at the very same time there was a slave trade going on beneath their floors. During this time, there was rumors that this church leaders, the pastors, the priests could hear the clanging of the slave trade all the while they just continued to sing louder and louder and louder. They would increase this song, Amazing Grace, so that they couldn't hear the shackles of what was going on underneath their floors. I want to propose to you tonight, Seacoast, that I believe that we also potentially have church members that are enslaved below our surface. So there is a church underground. The church that I believe is underground is with the mentally ill population. I believe that the mentally ill population sits waiting underneath the floors of our church. Right now, in the United States of America, 1 out of every 4 people is diagnosed and medicated for mental illness. That means that in this room, in our population alone, over 4 people in here have battled or struggled with a mental illness and have also been seen by a psychiatrist and have been medicated for it. You know, all of us will have an instance where this issue has become personal to us. For me, it happened 1 year ago when I walked with a church leader who was serving and coming alongside of us that I met in Inside Track, who had lost her daughter. We went through steps of grief counseling, and a year or so afterwards, I ended up at her bedside, where she had tried to commit suicide and in an attempt that she should have been successful at. I don't believe that this was just because of the grief that she endured, but I also believe it's because of her long struggle with mental illness, that no one as a pastor knew exactly how to help her with a pathway towards freedom. I believe that it is our responsibility to do something about this population that lies underground in our church. And I have 3 proposed solutions for this. The first one is that we could do nothing. We could do nothing about it. And there's some disadvantages, obviously, and some advantages to this. One of the disadvantages would be that we would have ill-equipped leaders. We would continue to have ill-equipped pastors, and we would know nothing about what to do. We would send out our people into a system that we do not know how to navigate, and also that we would have to continue to sing louder and louder while we're losing our lives among us. Some of the advantages of it were that we would have leaders and pastors that would save face. We wouldn't have to disclose the fact that we have no knowledge about this population or no knowledge about what to do with it. We also wouldn't have to disclose the fact that we ourselves may have struggled with this area or know someone that has. It would be easy and it would require nothing from our leadership. Another option would be that we could have a support group for this population. population. Some disadvantages to that we would gather them together in the same group with people who have the same struggles as them, not providing the iron sharpens iron example that we see biblically. Another disadvantage of this is the stigma that would come to those people would be the same stigma that they currently now have. They would just be over in another place somewhere else in the church. And a third disadvantage, we would still have the system navigation problems, where we would still know nothing about the mental health place that we're sending them into. Some advantages of it would require less from our leadership. They would continue to be those people, not us, and there would be less knowledge required of us. The final solution is what I want to propose to you today, is that I believe we need to gather together and come up with a strategic plan to help free and rescue this population that lies underneath our floor. I believe that that strategic plan, the disadvantage is that it would take a lot of time, that we would have to have leader vulnerability. It would take us as pastors recognizing the problem and talking about how we ourselves have struggled with it. We would need to bring in outsiders to help us understand what kind of level of care we need. But the advantages of it is I do believe that we would have a better level of care for the people that we are called to pastor. We would also have more educated pastors and counselors that could aid in the solution, and we could potentially save lives. When you think back to the church that I showed you at the beginning, the Anglican church, I want to also propose to another church. That church is called Plymouth Church, and it's in New York City. And it was actually founded by Henry Ward Beecher, and he founded it in 1847 with the Underground Railroad underneath the church. He founded it on the sole purpose to provide a pathway to free slaves until it became legal for him to do so. He would bring these slaves right up to the pulpit, and he would actually auction off their freedom so that he could talk about them and talk about the reality of what was happening underneath the floors. I don't know about you, Seacoast, but I do not want to be remembered for a legacy of a beautiful cathedral with nice walls and pretty priests that are singing louder and louder and louder. But I want to leave a legacy of a church that is actually providing a pathway of freedom to all of those that are underneath our care, and certainly to the 1 out of 4. So, how about let's join together with our brothers and sisters, with Harriet, his sister, Beecher Stowe, who you might have remembered that wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin, and also with Henry Ward Beecher. Let's join them together and provide a pathway for all of our people, every single person underneath our care. Thank you. We now have 2 minutes for questions. Who has the first question? Yes.
That is a powerful presentation, a sensitive topic, and an awesome responsibility. What liability does Seacoast have in working with the mentally challenged population?
The question pertains to the liability that Seacoast would have in working with the mentally ill population. Great question. I believe that would need to be one of the top priorities in our strategic plan. It would be why we would need to bring in an outsider, because right now as pastors we do have our insurance that covers us for liability. But in bringing in outsiders, I believe that our strategic plan would need to involve a counseling center that is somehow connected with Seacoast, so that we could have the right medical personnel that could also provide care. So the goal would be to not over-spiritualize and not under-spiritualize, but to come together and provide great care for these people. Is there any who has the next question?
We are out of time, so close it out.
Thank you all for joining me in this battle. I know that freedom is important to every single one of us. So thank you for your participation and attendance, and I hope we are going to fight this war together.
Yeah! She's deserting you, Aaron.
Oh, and thank you, Aaron.
You're still on stage. But we can counsel you on that.
Wow. First thing I'm going to do Sunday is I'm going to check the underground church. don't know what to say. I mean, this reality is there, but it's one of those things that I've never paid attention to until now. And then we're going to sign up. Always going to sign up. Thank you. Join me again in a round of applause for Katie Boulder.